Picture an ancient manuscript, its pages filled with strange, undecipherable symbols, unknown plants, naked women bathing in green pools, and a script that defies every attempt at translation. That's the Voynich Manuscript, a book so mysterious it's been called the most unreadable text in history. Or consider the WOW signal, a burst of radio waves detected in 1977, so strong and deliberate that scientists thought it might be our first contact with an alien civilization until it vanished without a trace. These aren't just oddities, they're whispers from the cosmos, fragments of something far grander, lingering just beyond our understanding. For thousands of years, the universe has been leaving us clues, enigmas carved into the fabric of space and time, waiting for someone bold enough to unravel them. Today we're setting off on a journey through 35 of the most baffling legends the cosmos has ever conjured, from lost civilizations that may have mapped the stars before recorded history, to celestial phenomena that defy the laws of physics. Each one is a puzzle begging to be solved. Some of these tales are centuries old, passed down through myths and folklore. Others are modern mysteries, spotted by satellites or stumbled upon by accident. But they all share one thing in common: they challenge everything we think we know about the universe. So why do these legends grip us so deeply? Maybe it's because they remind us that, for all our advancements, the cosmos still holds secrets far beyond our grasp. Or perhaps it's the thrill of the unknown, the possibility that, hidden in these stories, there's a truth waiting to rewrite history itself. Whatever the reason, one thing's certain: by the time we're done, you'll never look at the night sky the same way again. So settle in, because we're about to dive into the shadows of the eternal cosmos, where every mystery is a doorway, and every legend might just be a clue. Let's begin with one of history's most tantalizing riddles, the Voynich Manuscript, discovered in 1912 by antique book dealer Wilfrid Voynich. This 240-page medieval text is written entirely in a script that no one alive today can read. The pages are filled with looping, alien-looking characters, arranged as if they follow grammatical rules, yet not a single word matches any known language. And then there are the illustrations, delicate drawings of plants that don't exist, astrological diagrams with unfamiliar constellations, and most bizarre of all, countless depictions of women submerged in what appear to be interconnected pools of green liquid. For over a century, cryptographers, linguists, and even wartime codebreakers have tried and failed to crack its secrets. Some believe it's an encoded alchemy textbook, written in a cipher lost to time. Others argue it's a sophisticated hoax, perhaps created by a bored Renaissance scholar to fool wealthy collectors, but the most intriguing theory, that it's not of this world at all. The manuscript's botanical illustrations include flora with twisted, otherworldly structures, plants that seem to defy Earth's biology. Could this be a relic of alien contact, or even a forgotten human language from a lost civilization? What makes the Voynich Manuscript so enduringly mysterious isn't just its indecipherable text, it's the unsettling feeling that the answers are right in front of us, hidden in plain sight. Modern carbon dating places its creation between 1404 and 1438, yet no historical record mentions it before Voynich's discovery. Every theory unravels under scrutiny. If it's a hoax, why spend years crafting such an elaborate, scientifically coherent forgery? If it's real, why has not even artificial intelligence, been able to decode a single sentence? Perhaps the truth lies somewhere in between. One recent study suggested the manuscript might be written in a Proto-Romance language, a linguistic dead end that faded from history. But without a Rosetta Stone to unlock its meaning, the Voynich Manuscript remains a ghost, a whisper from the past that refuses to be understood, and that's what makes it legendary. It's not just a puzzle, it's a challenge from the universe itself, daring us to look closer, to question deeper, because some secrets aren't meant to be solved, they're meant to remind us how much we still don't know. On the night of August 15, 1977, a radio telescope in Ohio picked up something extraordinary, a signal so powerful and precise that it defied all natural explanations. For 72 seconds, the Big Ear telescope at Ohio State University recorded a burst of radio waves unlike anything astronomers had ever heard. It came from the direction of the constellation Sagittarius, blasting through the static of space with a strength 30 times louder than the cosmic background noise. And then, just as suddenly as it appeared, it vanished, never to be detected again. What made this signal, now famously known as the WOW signal, so electrifying was how perfectly it matched the profile of an extraterrestrial transmission. Scientists had long theorized that an alien civilization might communicate via narrowband radio waves at a specific frequency, and this hit the mark exactly. The signal's intensity spiked and faded in a way that mirrored a distant celestial source passing through the telescope's field of view, but the real smoking gun was the alphanumeric code scrawled by the computer printout, 6EQUJ5. This shorthand represented the signal's staggering strength, peaking at a level that left researchers stunned. The astronomer who discovered it, Jerry Amon, circled the printout in red pen and scribbled, "Wow." Next to it a reaction so genuine it gave the signal its name, yet despite decades of searching, no one has ever found a repeat broadcast. Countless telescopes have scanned the same patch of sky, hoping to catch another whisper from the void. All have come up empty, so what was it? Skeptics argue it could have been a rogue satellite, a military transmission, or even a bizarre astrophysical event. But none of these explanations fully fit. The signal's frequency matched the water hole, a quiet band of the radio spectrum where hydrogen and hydroxyl molecules emit faint whispers, a range scientists once proposed as the perfect channel for interstellar communication. And the fact that it hasn't recurred makes it even stranger. If it was human-made, why hasn't it been traced? If it was natural, why haven't we detected something similar since? The WOW signal remains one of the strongest candidates for extraterrestrial contact in history, a fleeting, enigmatic hello from the cosmos. Whether it was a cosmic coincidence, a glitch, or something else, it stands as a humbling reminder. In a universe brimming with noise, sometimes the most profound messages are the ones we hear only once. And perhaps that's the point. Some mysteries aren't meant to be solved, they're meant to keep us listening. Now imagine lying awake at night, your ears pulsing with a sound no one else seems to hear, a relentless, low-frequency drone that never fades. This isn't science fiction. For decades, residents of Taos, New Mexico, have reported exactly that, a mysterious vibration known as the Taos hum, throbbing through their homes, their heads, even their bones. Unlike ordinary noise, it's not something you hear so much as feel, a deep, unsettling buzz, like a distant diesel engine idling forever just beneath the threshold of normal hearing. Some describe it as a pressure, others as a rhythmic thrum, but for those who perceive it, the effect is the same: sleepless nights, migraines, and a creeping sense of isolation, because to everyone else, the world is silent. What makes the Taos hum so unnerving isn't just its persistence, it's the fact that science still can't explain it. In the early 1990s, after years of complaints, a team of researchers from the University of New Mexico launched an investigation. They brought in acoustic experts, set up sensitive equipment, and combed the town for clues. Their findings: nothing, no seismic activity, no industrial machinery, no secret military experiments, just an eerie absence of any physical source. Even stranger, only about 2% of Taos's population could detect the hum at all, leaving the rest to shrug it off as imagination. This selective perception fuels one of the most compelling theories, that the hum isn't external, but internal. Some scientists suggest it could be a form of tinnitus, a condition where the brain generates phantom sounds, yet that doesn't explain why the phenomenon clusters geographically, or why similar hums have been reported worldwide from Bristol, England, to Bondi, Australia. These global cases share uncanny similarities: always low frequency, always more felt than heard, and always dismissed by authorities? Could it be infrasound, frequencies below 20 Hz, which are inaudible to most but can induce physical discomfort? Natural sources like ocean waves or shifting tectonic plates emit infrasound, but none match the consistency of the TAO's reports. Then there's the more unsettling possibility that the hum is a collective psychological phenomenon. In the 70s, a British engineer named Vic Tandy noticed a similar vibration in his lab accompanied by a shadowy figure he swore was a ghost. Turns out, a hidden fan was emitting infrasound at exactly 18.9 Hz, a frequency known to vibrate eyeballs and induce dread. Could the TAO's hum be triggering a primal fear response, or is it something else entirely, an undiscovered geological resonance, a secret technology, or even a cosmic signal filtering through Earth's crust? Whatever the truth, the TAO's hum lingers like a riddle wrapped in static. It's a reminder that even in our hyper-connected world, some experiences defy measurement, explanation, or consensus. For those who hear it, the hum is as real as gravity. For science, it's a paradox, an invisible thread tugging at the edges of our understanding, and perhaps that's the point. Some mysteries don't exist to be solved, they exist to remind us that the world is stranger and far more layered than we'll ever know. High above our heads, hidden in the endless black of space, something impossible may be watching. For decades, conspiracy theorists have whispered about the Black Knight satellite, a mysterious object allegedly orbiting Earth for 13,000 years, broadcasting signals long before humans ever dreamed of flight. Its story begins with one of history's greatest minds, Nikola Tesla. In 1899, while experimenting with high-voltage radio transmissions in Colorado, Tesla reported picking up strange, rhythmic pulses. He believed they might be attempts at communication, perhaps from Mars, but what if those signals weren't from another planet at all? What if they came from something much closer? The legend truly took flight in the 1950s, when newspapers reported that the U.S. Air Force had detected an unidentified satellite orbiting Earth. This was 2 years before Sputnik, before any nation had the technology to launch objects into space. Cold War tensions ran high, and theories exploded. Had the Soviets secretly deployed a spy satellite, or was this something far older? By the 1960s, amateur astronomers claimed to have photographed a dark, irregularly shaped object drifting against the stars. Images circulated of what looked like a jagged, tumbling mass, ancient, alien, and utterly out of place. Then came the most chilling detail. In 1998, during a space shuttle mission, footage captured an odd silhouette floating near the International Space Station. Grainy and indistinct, it seemed to match descriptions of the Black Knight. NASA dismissed it as space debris, but believers weren't convinced. They pointed to alleged radio transmissions still emanating from the object, a slow, looping signal repeating every few hours like a heartbeat from the void. Yet for all the intrigue, science offers less sensational explanations. Modern astronomers argue the original sightings were likely discarded thermal blankets or lost equipment from early space missions. The famous photos, probably misidentified pieces of orbital debris catching the light at odd angles. Even Tesla's signals could have been natural radio waves from pulsars or atmospheric disturbances. But here's the twist: the most compelling Black Knight story might not be about aliens at all. It could be about us, about how easily fear and imagination transform the ordinary into the extraordinary. Because sometimes the greatest mystery isn't what's lurking in the dark, it's why we're so determined to see monsters there. The Black Knight endures not as proof of ancient astronauts, but as a mirror reflecting our own hunger for wonder. In a universe full of unknowns, perhaps we need legends like this not to deceive, but to remind us that the cosmos is still wild enough for magic. Stretching across the arid plains of southern Peru, an enormous menagerie of creatures and geometric shapes lies etched into the earth, some spanning longer than a football field, others so vast they can only be seen clearly from the sky. These are the Nazca lines, a collection of over 800 giant geoglyphs carved into the desert floor between 500 BCE and 500 CE. From a towering hummingbird with wings outstretched to a sinuous spiral-tailed monkey, the precision of these designs is staggering, but here's the twist: the Nazca people created them centuries before human flight, raising the haunting question, who were they meant for? Theories about their purpose range from the practical to the extraordinary. Some researchers argue the lines functioned as an astronomical calendar, aligning with solstices or constellations to track planting seasons. The most famous glyph, known as the astronaut, depicts a humanoid figure with wide, owl-like eyes, fueling speculation about ancient encounters with otherworldly beings. Then there's the controversial idea that the lines served as runways or signals for extraterrestrial visitors, a notion popularized by Swiss author Erich von Däniken in the 1960s. Skeptics dismiss this as fantasy, pointing out that the Nazca could have used simple surveying tools and grids to achieve such scale, yet the question lingers: why dedicate centuries of labor to art only visible from altitudes they could never reach? Perhaps the most compelling explanation ties the lines to water. In one of the driest places on Earth, the Nazca relied on hidden underground aquifers, and recent studies reveal many glyphs align with subterranean water sources. The hummingbird, a sacred animal in Andean cosmology, was believed to mediate between worlds, suggesting the lines were ritual pathways for ceremonies pleading with deities for life-giving rain. Archaeologists have even uncovered pottery along the designs, hinting at processions where offerings were made, but the mystery deepens when you consider their preservation. The Nazca Desert's windless climate and sun-baked soil have kept the lines intact for millennia, yet modern threats loom. In 2018, a truck driver veered off-road, plowing through 3 glyphs and leaving scars that may never fully heal. Climate change, too, poses risks. Shifting rainfall patterns could erase these fragile masterpieces. What makes the Nazca lines so spellbinding isn't just their scale or strangeness. It's the way they force us to grapple with the limits of ancient knowledge. Were they maps, prayers, or messages to the sky? The answer might be all three, a testament to humanity's eternal urge to reach beyond what we can touch and inscribe our dreams onto the world itself. In the summer of 1901, sponge divers off the coast of the tiny Greek island of Antikythera stumbled upon a shipwreck that would rewrite history. Among the shattered pottery and corroded bronze statues lay a lump of encrusted metal, unremarkable at first glance, until someone noticed the gears. What emerged from decades of painstaking restoration was the Antikythera Mechanism, an intricate, hand-powered device so advanced it shattered every assumption about ancient technology. Dating back to the 2nd century BCE, this bronze marvel contained over 30 interlocking gears, precisely calibrated to predict celestial events with staggering accuracy. It could track the cycles of the moon, forecast solar eclipses, and even chart the irregular orbit of planets. Functions so complex, nothing comparable would appear again for over 1,000 years. The genius of the mechanism lies in its miniaturization of cosmic order. Tiny inscriptions on its dials served as an astronomical almanac, while rotating pointers acted like the hands of a clock, marking the passage of time not in hours, but in the rhythmic dance of heavenly bodies. Researchers using 3-dimensional X-ray imaging discovered hidden layers of gears, each performing calculations that rival early modern clocks. One gear even modeled the moon's elliptical orbit, a mathematical feat requiring knowledge of gravitational anomalies the Greeks supposedly shouldn't have possessed. So how did such sophistication vanish for centuries? The answer might lie in the very ship that carried it. The Antikythera wreck was a Roman cargo vessel, likely transporting plundered Greek treasures to Italy. Historians speculate the mechanism was a one-of-a-kind prototype, its creators perhaps killed or enslaved during Rome's conquests. Without a living tradition to pass down the knowledge, the technology faded into myth. Later civilizations, including the Byzantines and Arabs, built intricate clocks, but none matched the Antikythera's celestial precision until the 1400s. The most haunting question isn't how it was made, but why its principles were forgotten. Was it guarded secret knowledge, reserved for elite astronomers? Or did the collapse of the ancient world sever a thread of scientific progress we're only now rediscovering? Modern reconstructions prove the device worked flawlessly, yet its existence forces us to confront a humbling truth. History isn't a straight line of advancement. Sometimes brilliance flares like a supernova, only to be swallowed by the dark for ages. The Antikythera Mechanism isn't just a relic. It's a warning, proof that even the grandest discoveries can vanish, leaving behind only whispers in the rust. The streets of Strasbourg erupted into chaos in July 1518, but not with riots or revelry, with dance. Hundreds of townspeople, from children to elderly, began twitching, convulsing, then flinging themselves into frenzied, uncontrollable movement. Their feet bled, their bones cracked from exhaustion, yet they couldn't stop. Some danced for days without sleep, collapsing only to die from sheer fatigue or heart failure. By August, nearly 400 people had succumbed to what history now calls the dancing plague, one of the most bizarre epidemics ever recorded. At first, authorities blamed overheated blood and prescribed more dancing, even hiring musicians and clearing market squares to encourage it. The logic was chillingly misguided. If the victims danced themselves to oblivion, the mania might burn out. Instead, it spread like wildfire. Contemporary accounts describe sufferers screaming for mercy mid-step, their bodies puppeteered by some unseen force. So what was this force? One theory points to ergot poisoning, a fungus that grows on damp rye and contains chemicals similar to LSD. When ingested, it can trigger hallucinations, muscle spasms, and psychotic breaks, symptoms that mirror the plague's descriptions. Strasbourg's poor, who relied on rye bread, would have been especially vulnerable, but skeptics note ergotism usually causes gangrene and numbness, not compulsive movement. Another explanation leans on mass psychogenic illness, a form of collective hysteria where stress manifests as physical symptoms. The years before the plague were brutal. Famine, crop failures, and superstitious dread gripped the region. Could the dancing have been a primal release of pent-up despair? Then there's the wild-card cosmic influence. Some researchers speculate a rare alignment of planets or solar flares might have disrupted human bioelectric fields, triggering involuntary muscle contractions. It's a fringe idea, but not without precedent. Medieval Europe often linked celestial events to earthly calamities, and the 1500s saw heightened solar activity. Still, no scientific evidence ties cosmic phenomena to mass dancing. Perhaps the truth lies in the intersection of all three. Ergot might have ignited the spark, societal trauma fanned the flames, and cosmic folklore gave it meaning. The dancing plague endures not just as a medical mystery, but as a mirror to human vulnerability. It reminds us how easily bodies and minds can unravel when biology, belief, and fear collide, and how history's strangest chapters often hide in plain sight, waiting for us to ask not just what happened, but why we're so desperate to explain it away. On the morning of June 30, 1908, a blinding fireball streaked across the sky over Siberia, so bright it cast shadows in London, 8,000 miles away. Minutes later, a blast ripped through the remote forests near the Tunguska River with a force of 10 to 15 million tons of TNT, flattening 80 million trees across 800 square miles. The shockwave circled the globe twice, and for nights afterward, the skies over Europe and Asia glowed eerily, as if illuminated by some unseen celestial lantern. Yet when scientists finally reached the site 19 years later, they found something baffling. No crater, no meteorite fragments, just a radial pattern of devastation, like a giant had stomped the trees outward in all directions. For decades, the Tunguska event has been the ultimate cosmic whodunit. The leading theory, a comet or asteroid exploding mid-air, roughly 3 to 6 miles above the ground. At that altitude, the pressure and heat would have vaporized the object before impact, creating a superheated blast wave that acted like a natural atomic bomb. But here's where the debate ignites. If it was a stony asteroid, we'd expect fragments, tiny remnants buried in the soil, yet expeditions have found only microscopic glass spheres, likely melted debris from the explosion. This absence fuels the comet argument. Icy bodies, composed mostly of frozen gases, would vaporize completely, but even that doesn't quite fit. Comets typically leave telltale dust trails in the atmosphere, and Tunguska's atmospheric glow didn't match known comet chemistry. Then there's the wild card: could it have been something else entirely? In the 1970s, some researchers proposed a rogue black hole or a chunk of antimatter, though both ideas crumble under scrutiny. More recently, scientists floated the gas burst hypothesis, a massive pocket of natural gas seeping from Earth's crust and igniting in the atmosphere. It's a stretch, but it would explain the lack of space debris. What makes Tunguska so fascinating isn't just the scale of destruction, it's the lingering uncertainty. This was the largest cosmic impact in recorded history, and yet it left no tangible evidence of its origin. It's a cosmic detective story with missing clues, where every theory has a hole. Even today, new research suggests the blast area might hold answers in its soil chemistry, with traces of elements like iridium hinting at an extraterrestrial origin. But perhaps the real lesson of Tunguska isn't about what hit us, it's about what could. In 2013, a much smaller meteor exploded over Chelyabinsk, Russia, injuring over 1,000 people. Had Tunguska struck a populated area, the death toll would have been catastrophic. The event serves as a humbling reminder: the universe doesn't care about our calendars or cities. It's a vast, unpredictable arena where forces beyond our control sometimes flicker into view, not to frighten us, but to remind us how much we've yet to understand. And in that mystery lies both terror and wonder. On the evening of March 13, 1997, the skies over Arizona became the stage for one of the most widely witnessed UFO events in history. It began as a series of glowing orbs floating in formation near Phoenix, but what unfolded next would defy all conventional explanation. Over 10,000 people reported seeing a massive, silent V-shaped craft, stretching nearly a mile wide, gliding slowly across the desert. Its scale was staggering, blotting out stars as it passed. Witnesses included pilots, police officers, and even a former governor, all describing the same eerie sight: a structured, otherworldly vessel moving with impossible precision. The military's response came weeks later, attributing the phenomenon to flares dropped during training exercises at the nearby Barry Goldwater Range. According to officials, the lights were simply illumination flares suspended from parachutes, a routine procedure, but the explanation unraveled under scrutiny. Witnesses insisted the flares theory didn't account for the early sightings, which occurred 2 hours before the military's claimed drop time. Even more damning, the V-shaped object was seen moving, sometimes hovering, sometimes drifting at speeds inconsistent with parachute flares. One airline pilot reported the craft passing directly overhead, close enough to see its triangular structure and 5 distinct lights. Flares don't fly in formation, they don't maneuver, and they certainly don't vanish without a trace. What makes the Phoenix lights so compelling isn't just the sheer number of witnesses, it's the chilling consistency of their accounts. People hundreds of miles apart described the same unearthly geometry, the same eerie silence. A retired Air Force officer, once a staunch skeptic, admitted the event shook his faith in conventional explanations. This wasn't swamp gas or weather balloons, he later said. This was something engineered. Yet the most haunting detail lies in the aftermath. Despite the volume of testimony, no government agency has ever released radar data from that night. No flight logs, no satellite imagery, just silence. Even the military's own flares demonstration, staged months later to quell public concern, failed to replicate the scale or behavior of the original event. The lights they dropped flickered weakly, drifting haphazardly, nothing like the coordinated, deliberate motion thousands swore they'd seen. So what was it? A secret military aircraft, decades ahead of its time, a misidentified celestial phenomenon, or something far stranger? The Phoenix lights endure not because they defy explanation, but because they expose the limits of our willingness to accept that some mysteries don't fit neatly into boxes. They linger in the collective memory like a challenge not just to science, but to our very understanding of what might be sharing the skies with us, and perhaps that's the point. Some questions aren't meant to be answered, they're meant to keep us looking up. Deep in Russia's Ural Mountains, a lone tent flapped in the howling wind, its fabric slashed open from the inside. Nearby, the bodies of 9 experienced hikers lay scattered across the snow, some with fractured skulls, others missing eyes or tongues, all dressed in nothing but thin undergarments despite the freezing temperatures. This was Dyatlov Pass, where in February 1959, a group of students embarked on what should have been a routine skiing expedition. Instead, their journey ended in one of the most chilling unsolved mysteries of the 20th century. The facts alone are unsettling enough. Search teams found the tent abandoned, with no signs of struggle. Footprints leading away suggested the hikers fled in panic barefoot, in some cases into sub-zero darkness. The first 2 bodies were discovered under a cedar tree, their hands burned as if they'd clawed at the bark. Further searches revealed more corpses, one with a crushed chest, another with a fractured skull but no external wounds. Most bizarre of all, traces of radiation were detected on their clothing, and one victim's tongue was mysteriously missing. The Soviet military swiftly classified the case, fueling decades of speculation. Mainstream theories point to avalanches, a sudden slide forcing them to cut their way out before being buried, yet this doesn't explain why the injuries resembled high-impact trauma, not blunt force, or why radiation was present. Others suggest infrasound, low-frequency vibrations from wind patterns that can induce terror and disorientation. If the pass's unique geography amplified these sound waves, the hikers might have hallucinated threats, fleeing blindly into the storm. Then there's the darker angle, secret military testing. Declassified documents reveal the area was used for parachute mines and experimental weapons. Could the hikers have witnessed something they shouldn't have? The radiation traces lend eerie weight to this idea, but the truth remains frozen in time, as elusive as the shadows that still creep across Dyatlov Pass. What happened that night wasn't just a tragedy, it was a collision of forces we're only beginning to name, and sometimes the wilderness doesn't give up its secrets. It swallows them whole. For over 200 years, a small island off the coast of Nova Scotia has lured fortune seekers, engineers, and historians into an obsessive quest, one riddled with cryptic clues, elaborate traps, and whispers of unimaginable riches. Welcome to Oak Island, home of the infamous Money Pit, a booby-trapped shaft so ingeniously designed that it's claimed at least 6 lives and devoured millions of dollars in excavation costs without ever surrendering its secrets. The story begins in 1795, when a teenager named Daniel Maginnis spotted strange lights flickering over the island. Investigating, he discovered a circular depression in the ground, a perfect man-made looking pit lined with oak logs at precise 10-foot intervals. And that was just the start. Digging deeper, early excavators hit a layer of flagstones, then charcoal, then ship's putty materials clearly placed there deliberately. But the real shock came at 90 feet, a flat stone inscribed with cryptic symbols. Translated, it allegedly read, 40 feet below, 2 million pounds lie buried. Yet every attempt to reach that prize triggered disaster. Workers suddenly struck an engineered flood tunnel, their carefully dug shaft filling with seawater almost instantly. Was this the work of pirates like Captain Kidd, who supposedly stashed loot along these shores, or something older, much older? Theories spiral into the extraordinary. Some believe the pit guards Templar treasure, smuggled from Europe after the Order's suppression in the 14th century. Oak Island's intricate tunnels mirror descriptions of Templar engineering, and one expedition even claimed to unearth a medieval-style hand-forged nail. Others argue it's the lost vault of Shakespeare's original manuscripts, hidden by Baconians who believe Sir Francis Bacon penned the plays. Then there's the wildest idea of all, that the pit conceals sacred relics, perhaps even the Ark of the Covenant, spirited away from Jerusalem centuries ago. Modern attempts to solve the riddle read like an Indiana Jones script. In 1965, a camera lowered into a borehole captured blurred images of what looked like chests and severed human hands. Later, sonar scans detected unnatural voids deep underground, their geometry too precise for natural formations, yet every breakthrough crumbles under the island's defiance. Drills strike metal, then jam, tunnels collapse, equipment fails inexplicably. Even today, with satellite imaging and ground-penetrating radar, the money pit taunts us, an engineering marvel that predates the pyramids by some estimates, yet remains just out of reach. What makes Oak Island so captivating isn't just the potential treasure, it's the puzzle itself, a labyrinth of clues suggesting whoever built this wanted it to last. The flood tunnels, some stretching 500 feet to the coast, required staggering manpower and knowledge of hydraulics centuries ahead of its time. The coconut fiber found deep in the pit, native to the Caribbean, hinting at a global operation. Even skeptics admit there's something here, but whether it's gold or merely the greatest folly in archaeological history, one thing's certain: the island isn't done with us yet. Every shovel of dirt, every failed expedition, pulls us deeper into its mystery, not just of what's buried, but of the minds daring enough to hide it so well. Stretching between Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico lies a patch of ocean that swallowed ships and planes without a trace for centuries. The Bermuda Triangle's legend is built on vanishing acts like Flight 19, a squadron of 5 U.S. Navy bombers that disappeared in December 1945 during a routine training mission. The pilot's final radio transmissions crackle with confusion, compasses spinning wildly, the sea not looking right, and the chilling realization they were lost despite clear skies. Rescue planes launched to find them vanished too. No wreckage, no distress signals, just silence. But Flight 19 is just one thread in a much stranger tapestry. Scientists have spent decades untangling fact from folklore, and some explanations are surprisingly grounded. One leading theory points to methane hydrates, massive bubbles of trapped gas that erupt from the seabed, reducing water density so drastically that ships lose buoyancy and sink instantly. Lab experiments prove this phenomenon could swallow vessels whole, leaving no debris. Others argue the triangle sits in a magnetic anomaly zone where compasses fail, sending navigators fatally off course. Here, Earth's magnetic fields behave erratically, a quirk that could explain why so many disappearances involve instruments going haywire. Then there are the theories that defy conventional physics. Some researchers speculate the triangle might host transient electronic fog, the mysterious, bank-like mist that disrupts engines and induces time distortions. Pilots who have encountered it describe instruments malfunctioning, while the fog itself seems to move with eerie sentience. Even stranger are claims of dimensional portals, wormholes that briefly open to swallow anything passing through. These ideas sound like science fiction, but they are fueled by credible accounts. In 1970, a commercial pilot reported his plane being engulfed in a tunnel of light, only to emerge miles off course with time unaccounted for. Yet perhaps the most compelling angle isn't supernatural, it's statistical. Insurance data reveals the triangle sees no more disappearances than other high-traffic shipping lanes when adjusted for scale. Many mysteries crumble under scrutiny. The freighter SS Marine Sulphur Queen, often cited as a victim, likely sank due to poor maintenance, not cosmic forces. Even Flight 19's fate might be tragically mundane, an inexperienced leader misreading instruments. leading his team into empty ocean until fuel ran out. So why does the myth endure? Because the ocean is humanity's last great unknown, and the triangle lets us project our fears onto its vastness. It's a canvas for the unexplained, where science and legend collide. Whether the truth lies in gas bubbles or something far stranger, one thing's certain: the Bermuda Triangle isn't just a graveyard for ships, it's a mirror reflecting our primal awe and terror of the deep. In the fall of 1969, a cryptogram arrived at the San Francisco Chronicle, block of 340 seemingly random characters signed by the most infamous serial killer America had ever known. This was the Zodiac's fourth cipher, and like the others, it was more than a puzzle. It was a taunt. "My name is," the killer had written in an earlier letter, promising to reveal his identity if the code was cracked. But no one could. For over 50 years, the 340 cipher sat untouched, resisting code breakers from the FBI to amateur cryptographers worldwide, until 2020, when a team of experts finally pried it open. And what they found was far stranger than anyone expected. The Zodiac ciphers weren't just random jumbles, they were layered, meticulous, and deliberately cruel. His first cipher, cracked in 1969 by a schoolteacher and his wife, revealed a chilling narcissism: "I like killing people because it is so much fun." But the 340 cipher, it defied every tool in modern cryptography. The killer had used a homophonic substitution system, assigning multiple symbols to common letters like E and T to throw off frequency analysis. He even misspelled words intentionally, weaving red herrings into the grid. When the solution finally emerged, it wasn't a confession or a name, it was a rambling, paranoid rant about slavery and the afterlife, ending with the eerie phrase, "I hope you are having lots of fun trying to catch me." So who was behind these mind games? Suspects range from Arthur Lee Allen, a school janitor whose handwriting matched Zodiac's misspellings, to a shadowy figure named Gary Francis Post, linked by DNA evidence in 2021. Yet none fit perfectly. Allen was cleared by fingerprints, and Post's connection remains hotly debated. The killer's letters dripped with theatrical flair. He designed his own crosshair symbol, demanded victims wear his Zodiac watches, and even threatened to bomb school buses if his messages weren't printed. This wasn't just murder, it was performance art, with the public as his captive audience. What makes the Zodiac ciphers so unnerving isn't their complexity. It's the possibility they're still hiding something. In 2021, a volunteer team claimed to solve his final cipher, the 13-symbol puzzle, revealing coordinates pointing to Mount Diablo. But the truth remains murky. Were these clues more taunts or pure chaos? The Zodiac didn't just want to kill, he wanted to be remembered not as a man, but as a myth. And in that he succeeded. His ciphers linger like ghostly fingerprints on history, whispering that some codes aren't meant to be broken, they're meant to haunt us. Hanging in the dim light of Turin's cathedral, a single piece of linen seems to hold the weight of 2,000 years of faith and skepticism. The Shroud of Turin, a 14-foot-long cloth bearing the faint but unmistakable imprint of a crucified man, has been called both the most sacred relic in Christendom and the most elaborate hoax in history. To believers, it's the burial shroud of Jesus Christ, its mysterious image seared into the fabric by divine power. To skeptics, it's a medieval forgery, cleverly crafted to deceive the faithful. But here's where the plot thickens. Science can't entirely dismiss it, and art can't fully explain it. Let's start with the image itself. Unlike any painting or dye, the figure on the shroud isn't pigment-based. Instead, it's a superficial discoloration of the linen fibers, almost like a photographic negative, a concept centuries before photography existed. The details are hauntingly precise, wounds matching biblical accounts of crucifixion, from the crown of thorns to the spear puncture in the side. Even more baffling, the image is three-dimensional. When analyzed by NASA scientists in the 1970s, their VP8 image analyzer, a device designed to map lunar topography, revealed that the shroud's shading contained depth information, something no known medieval artist could have engineered. Then came the carbon dating controversy. In 1988, 3 independent labs tested tiny samples of the shroud, dating it to between 1260 and 1390, squarely in the Middle Ages. Case closed, not quite. Critics pointed out the tested samples came from a repaired edge, possibly contaminated by centuries of handling and fire damage. The shroud survived a chapel fire in 1532, which melted silver onto parts of the cloth, potentially skewing results. Later studies found chemical signatures inconsistent with medieval materials, including traces of pollen from plants native to ancient Judea. But the real enigma is how the image was made. Modern attempts to replicate it, using everything from ultraviolet light to medieval painting techniques, fall short. The image lacks brush strokes, doesn't penetrate the cloth, and mimics a perfect photographic negative. One radical theory suggests a burst of radiant energy, perhaps from the moment of resurrection, momentarily scorched the fibers. Others propose a primitive form of camera obscura, though no technology of the time could achieve such precision. What makes the shroud so compelling isn't just the question of its authenticity. It's the way it straddles faith and science, daring us to reconcile the two. Whether divine artifact or unparalleled forgery, it challenges our understanding of history, art, and even physics. And perhaps that's the point. Some mysteries aren't meant to be solved, they're meant to keep us questioning, searching, and marveling at the limits of what we think we know. The Atlantic Ocean stretched calm and empty under the December sun in 1872, when the crew of the Dei Gratia spotted a vessel drifting aimlessly near the Azores. As they drew closer, they recognized her, the Mary Celeste, a sturdy brigantine that had left New York weeks earlier, but something was wrong. No one hailed them from the deck. No hands worked the sails. Boarding the ship, the crew found an eerie tableau: breakfast dishes still warm on the table, laundry hung neatly to dry, even a child's doll resting peacefully in a bunk. The ship's cargo, over 1,700 barrels of industrial alcohol, remained untouched. The lifeboat was missing, but there were no signs of struggle, no storm damage, not so much as a single drop of blood. The Mary Celeste's 10 passengers and crew had vanished into thin air, leaving behind a perfectly seaworthy vessel and a mystery that would haunt maritime history for over a century. What could make an entire crew abandon ship so hastily? They left behind their personal belongings and even their meals. The theories range from plausible to downright fantastical. Some point to the alcohol fumes. If barrels had leaked, the vapors might have created an explosion risk, prompting an evacuation. But would experienced sailors really flee without even attempting to vent the hold? Others suggest a waterspout or seaquake, an underwater tremor that could have startled the crew into believing the ship was sinking, yet the Mary Celeste showed no structural damage to support this. Then there's the more unsettling idea of a mutiny or pirate attack, but with valuables left undisturbed, this seems unlikely. The wildest explanations venture into the supernatural. Could the crew have fallen victim to some temporal anomaly, slipping through a rift in time? It's a stretch, but the absence of any rational cause leaves room for speculation. Even Arthur Conan Doyle, years before creating Sherlock Holmes, penned a sensational short story blaming the disappearance on an ex-slave's vengeful curse. The truth is likely more mundane yet no less haunting. Perhaps the captain, fearing an imminent explosion, ordered everyone into the lifeboat, only for the tow line to snap, leaving them adrift in the open ocean. Modern investigations have uncovered surprising clues. In 2006, marine archaeologists studying the ship's logbook noticed an odd detail. The final entry recorded the Mary Celeste's position just off Santa Maria Island, yet she was found hundreds of miles away. This suggests the crew abandoned ship much earlier than thought, maybe days before the Dei Gratia found her. As for the warm meal, that could be pure legend, exaggerated over time. But legends persist because they fill the gaps where facts fail us. The Mary Celeste remains the ultimate ghost ship, a blank canvas onto which we project our deepest fears of the sea's uncanny power to erase lives without a trace. And sometimes the most terrifying mysteries aren't about what happened, but how little we'll ever truly know. In the late summer of 1590, English explorer John White returned to Roanoke Island after a 3-year absence, only to find silence where a bustling colony should have been. The 115 settlers, including his own granddaughter, Virginia Dare, the first English child born in the New World, had vanished without a trace. The only clue, the word Croatoan carved into a wooden post, and crow etched into a nearby tree. No bodies, no signs of struggle, just an eerie emptiness that would echo through history as one of America's oldest unsolved mysteries. What happened to the lost colony? The prevailing theory points to assimilation with the Croatoan tribe, a friendly Native American group living on what's now Hatteras Island. Archaeologists digging in the area have uncovered European artifacts mixed with indigenous tools, a 16th-century signet ring, sword hilts, and even fragments of English pottery woven into Croatoan settlements. These finds suggest some settlers may have integrated with the tribe, either voluntarily for survival or under duress after food shortages or conflicts. But why leave the cryptic carving? Some historians argue it was a deliberate breadcrumb, a message indicating their destination. Others believe it was a distress signal, scratched hastily as danger approached. Then there's the darker possibility, violence. The Roanoke settlers arrived during a time of escalating tensions between English colonists and local tribes. Just years earlier, a previous expedition had burned a nearby village and executed its chief. Could the colonists have faced retaliation? A 17th-century account from the Jamestown settlement mentions rumors of slaughtered Englishmen and a mysterious wall of stone deep in the woods, possibly a fortification or mass grave. Yet no definitive evidence of a massacre has ever surfaced. The wild card, supernatural speculation. Early European settlers believed the New World was a realm of dark magic, and later folklore wove tales of the colonists being spirited away by otherworldly forces or cursed by native shaman. One particularly chilling legend describes ghostly figures spotted near Roanoke, silent and clad in Elizabethan clothing, vanishing when approached. The truth may lie in the soil. Recent excavations at a site called Site X, 50 miles inland, have yielded European artifacts from the correct era, hinting at a splinter group's attempted relocation. But with no skeletons or definitive records, the fate of Roanoke settlers remains shadowed by the same wilderness that swallowed them 4 centuries ago. Some mysteries aren't puzzles to be solved, they're mirrors, reflecting our hunger for answers in the silent places history leaves behind. Deep in the jungles of Central America, legends speak of 13 crystal skulls, each carved from a single block of flawless quartz, imbued with supernatural powers to reveal lost knowledge, heal the sick, or even unleash catastrophe if brought together. For over a century, these artifacts have danced between archaeology and fantasy, their origins as murky as the prophecies surrounding them. The most famous, the Mitchell-Hedges skull, surfaced in the 1920s, discovered by adventurer A. Mitchell-Hedges' daughter during an expedition to Belize. Its surface was polished to a glassy perfection, with a detachable jawbone that moved as if hinged by invisible hands. How could ancient civilizations without modern tools create something so precise? The truth, it turns out, is far less mystical, but no less fascinating. Forensic analysis in the 21st century revealed telltale marks of 20th century lapidary tools on the Mitchell-Hedges skull's surface, microscopic grooves left by high-speed rotary cutters. Similar examinations of other ancient skulls, like the British Museum's specimen, trace their quartz to Madagascar or Brazil regions with no known Maya or Aztec trade routes. The smoking gun came in 2008 when the Journal of Archaeological Science published a damning study Every major crystal skull tested showed signs of modern manufacturing, likely crafted in 19th century Germany or France to feed Europe's obsession with exotic antiquities. But why the enduring allure? Much of the mythos stems from a mix of genuine Mesoamerican reverence for skulls as symbols of rebirth and Hollywood embellishment. The Maya did carve skulls from jade and obsidian, but these were ritual objects, not oracles. The crystal skull frenzy truly ignited in the 1960s, when self-proclaimed psychics began claiming the artifacts emitted strange energies or visions. Some New Age adherents still insist the skulls hold Atlantean wisdom or extraterrestrial messages. Despite the evidence, even Indiana Jones couldn't resist it. His fourth film spun a tale of interdimensional beings and mind control relics, cementing the skull's place in pop culture. What's most intriguing isn't the hoax itself, but why we fell for it. The crystal skulls tap into a timeless human craving, the desire to believe there's more to history than what's written in textbooks. They're mirrors reflecting our fascination with lost civilizations and hidden powers, even when the reality is just a clever con, and perhaps that's the real magic. Some legends don't need to be true to leave their mark, they just need to remind us how much we love a good mystery. Turn the pages of the Voynich Manuscript, and you'll stumble into a garden unlike any on Earth, a place where plants twist into impossible shapes, where roots coil like serpents, and petals bloom in geometries that defy nature's logic. Over 113 botanical illustrations fill its pages, each more baffling than the last. Take folio 33, where a plant sprouts bulbous, pumpkin-like growths along its stem, or folio 9's specimen, its leaves studded with what appear to be tiny, star-shaped nodules. These aren't just stylized medieval herbs, they're organisms with no known counterpart in our world's flora, past or present. Could these be extinct species, lost to time? Some researchers argue yes, pointing to the manuscript's possible 15th century origins, an era when global exploration was unearthing plants Europeans had never seen. The Renaissance fascination with exotic specimens might explain some oddities, like the mandrake-like roots or the exaggerated medicinal herbs common in herbals of the time. But the Voynich's plants go beyond mere artistic license. They display anatomical features that shouldn't exist, stems that branch fractally, veins forming cryptic symbols, and flowers with radial symmetries unknown in terrestrial botany. Then there's the extraterrestrial angle. The manuscript's most infamous plant, nicknamed the Voynich sunflower, resembles no known sunflower species. Its central disc is a labyrinth of spirals, its petals asymmetrical and jagged, almost like a biological antenna. Could these illustrations depict flora from another world? Astrobiologists note that alien plants, shaped by different gravity, light, or atmospheres, might evolve wildly divergent structures. Silicon-based life, for instance, could produce crystalline leaves, while high radiation environments might favor thick, protective layers akin to the manuscript's armored stems. Yet the most compelling clue lies in the details. Many Voynich plants feature hollow tubes or interconnected cavities, reminiscent of bioluminescent organisms, or even speculative hydraulic systems for nutrient transport. One theory suggests they're not plants at all, but elaborate alchemical symbols, a visual code representing processes like distillation or fermentation. The green pools surrounding the naked women could hint at liquid solvents, their bodies symbolizing purified elements. But here's the twist: modern algorithms have identified patterns in these plants that mirror real botanical classification. A 2019 study using machine learning found the illustrations cluster into distinct families, as if following scientific rules. Whether hoax, hallucination, or heresy, the Voynich's garden is no random doodle. It's a meticulously crafted mystery, one that challenges us to ask, are we looking at a lost chapter of Earth's biology, or a glimpse into a universe far stranger than we've dared to imagine? Some books don't just hide secrets, they grow them. the hunt for another whisper from the cosmos didn't end with that fleeting 72 seconds in 1977. In the decades since the WOW signal crackled through the void, scientists have turned the full force of modern astronomy toward one burning question: was it really just a cosmic one-time fluke? Projects like SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, have scanned the same patch of Sagittarius with telescopes 1,000 times more sensitive than the Big Ear, armed with algorithms that can sift through stellar static like digital sleuths. Yet silence persists, but here's what's changed: we're no longer relying on lone telescopes scribbling onto paper. Today's arrays, like the Allen Telescope Array in California, use dozens of dish antennas working in unison, scanning millions of frequencies simultaneously. Back in 1977, the Big Ear could only listen to one channel at a time, like trying to find a needle in a galaxy-sized haystack with a single magnet. Now we've built industrial-grade metal detectors. The signal's elusive nature has only deepened its legend. In 2012, on the 35th anniversary of the detection, the Arecibo Observatory, once the world's most powerful radio telescope, trained its massive dish on the exact coordinates, hoping for a follow-up. Nothing. Then in 2020, researchers at the Green Bank Telescope tried a new tactic. Instead of just listening for repeating signals, they scanned for technosignatures, artificial patterns that might indicate not just a hello, but an entire civilization's electromagnetic footprint. Still, the cosmos kept its secrets. Even the European Space Agency's Gaia mission, which maps the precise positions of over 1 billion stars, has scrutinized the WOW region for unusual planetary systems. No luck, but the most tantalizing twist came from an unexpected place: machine learning. In 2017, a team fed decades of SETI data into neural networks designed to spot anomalies human eyes might miss. The AI flagged a handful of intriguing blips, none as strong as WOW, but clustered eerily close to its frequency. Could these be faint echoes of the same source, dimmed by time or distance? It's a long shot, but it underscores how far we've come. The WOW signal wasn't just a mystery, it was a wake-up call. Before 1977, SETI was a fringe endeavor. Afterward, it became a scientific imperative, driving innovations like the Breakthrough Listen project, which commits $100 million to scanning the nearest million stars. What's next? The answer might lie in the stars themselves. New telescopes like the Square Kilometre Array, set to go online in the next decade, will listen with such precision they could detect a cell phone signal from a planet light years away. And when we find another signal, we'll be ready, not just with better tech, but with a global network of observatories to triangulate its origin within minutes. The WOW signal taught us something profound. The universe isn't just vast, it's alive with possibility, and somewhere out there, in the crackling silence, the next hello might already be on its way. The unsettling drone that plagues TOWs is far from alone. Across the globe, from the coastal town of Bristol in England to the quiet suburbs of Windsor, Ontario, similar reports of an unexplained hum have surfaced, each carrying eerie parallels. In Largs, Scotland, residents describe a low-frequency throbbing that rattles windows and disturbs sleep. Over in Bondi, Australia, locals complain of a relentless vibration that seems to emanate from the Earth itself. These hums share uncanny similarities: always low frequency, often more felt than heard, and frustratingly elusive to scientific measurement. What connects these disparate locations separated by oceans and continents? Geologists point to tectonic activity as a possible thread. Many hum hotspots sit atop geological fault lines or areas with deep seismic rumbles. The Bristol hum, first reported in the 1970s, coincides with the Welsh Borderland fault system, where subterranean stresses could generate inaudible vibrations that resonate upward. Similarly, Taos lies near the Rio Grande Rift, a zone of slow continental pulling that might produce subtle harmonic frequencies. If these regions act like giant tuning forks, Could the hum be the Earth's own infrasonic song? Some researchers speculate about microseisms, tiny, constant tremors too faint for traditional seismographs, but detectable as ambient vibration, yet electromagnetic forces offer another compelling angle. Windsor's hum, documented since the 2010s, clusters near industrial zones with high-voltage power lines. Studies elsewhere link similar phenomena to electromagnetic interference, perhaps from electrical grids or even solar activity, disrupting the planet's magnetic field. In one bizarre case, a town in New Zealand traced their hum to a malfunctioning transformer emitting a 19 Hz tone, a frequency notorious for inducing unease. But this doesn't explain rural areas like Taos, where power infrastructure is sparse. Then there's the wildcard theory, the hum as a collective auditory hallucination. In Kokomo, Indiana, an investigation pinpointed industrial fans as the source, yet even after their removal, some residents insisted the hum persisted. This psychological persistence suggests the hum might be a feedback loop. Once the brain latches onto an elusive sound, it amplifies it, filtering out silence. The more attention paid, the louder it becomes. What binds these hums together isn't just sound, it's the way they expose the fragility of our perception. Whether born from seismic whispers, electromagnetic ghosts, or the mind's own tricks, they remind us that the world vibrates with mysteries no instrument can fully capture. And sometimes the most profound enigmas aren't heard with the ears, but felt in the bones. NASA has long maintained that the so-called Black Knight satellite is nothing more than space debris, a forgotten thermal blanket from a decades-old mission, or a discarded piece of equipment drifting in low Earth orbit. In official statements, agency scientists point out how common it is for human-made objects to break loose and linger in orbit, often tumbling unpredictably as they reflect sunlight in ways that can seem deliberate to the untrained eye. The infamous 1998 footage caught during a space shuttle mission, according to NASA, that was likely a stray insulating cover from a previous satellite deployment, its jagged edges creating shadows that lent it an otherworldly silhouette. Even the anomalous radio signals attributed to the Black Knight, they argue, could easily be interference from terrestrial sources or natural electromagnetic phenomena. After all, space is far from silent. Cosmic rays, solar winds, and even distant pulsars create a constant crackle of background noise that can sometimes mimic artificial patterns. Yet conspiracy theorists remain unconvinced, and their skepticism isn't entirely baseless. Critics highlight how NASA explanations shift over time, first dismissing early sightings as unidentified, then later attributing them to specific debris without releasing corroborating radar data. The agency's silence on certain details fuels suspicion. Why, for instance, has no high-resolution imagery of the object ever been made public, despite modern telescopes capable of capturing license plates from orbit? And why do independent astronomers occasionally report tracking unknown objects in trajectories that don't match any cataloged space junk? The most persistent claim is that the Black Knight represents suppressed technology, either an ancient alien probe or a classified human project so advanced its existence threatens geopolitical stability. The tension between these perspectives reveals something deeper than just a debate over floating metal. It's a clash between institutional credibility and the human instinct to distrust official narratives. NASA, as the world's foremost space authority, operates under immense scrutiny, where every admission of uncertainty risks eroding public trust. Meanwhile, conspiracy culture thrives on the gaps in that certainty, weaving stories where secrecy implies significance. What's fascinating isn't whether the Black Knight is real, it's why we need it to be. In a universe where space agencies can track asteroids and land rovers on Mars, the idea that something could still evade their grasp is tantalizing. It whispers that the cosmos might yet hold surprises no government can control. So where does that leave us? Perhaps the truth lies not in choosing sides, but in recognizing the Black Knight as a cultural artifact, a mirror reflecting our anxieties about authority, our hunger for wonder, and the timeless allure of the unexplained. Whether it's a piece of stray foil or something far stranger, its legend endures because it asks us to look up and question what's really out there, and sometimes the most enduring mysteries aren't about the answers we find, but the questions we refuse to stop asking. Just when we thought the Nazca lines had given up all their secrets, technology ripped open another chapter in their enigmatic story. In 2020, archaeologists armed with drones and artificial intelligence uncovered over 150 previously unknown geoglyphs hidden across Peru's arid plateaus, some buried for so long, even the local farmers had no idea they existed. These aren't just faint etchings. One depicts a sprawling humanoid figure with a dramatic headdress, arms outstretched as if summoning the sky. Another shows a surreal two-headed snake coiled around what might be a ritual altar. But the real shock, many of these designs are smaller and more intricate than the famous animal glyphs, suggesting they weren't meant for distant celestial viewers at all. They were crafted for eyes much closer to the ground. This revelation flips everything we thought we knew about the Nazca's motives. If the colossal hummingbird and monkey were celestial markers or water maps, what purpose did these hidden figures serve? Some researchers propose they were sacred pathways for intimate ceremonies, walked only by shamans or chosen pilgrims. Their smaller scale and finer details visible only from low-flying drones or nearby hilltops hint at a layered spiritual landscape where not all messages were meant for the gods. Some were whispers between humans and the earth, yet the mystery deepens when you consider how these glyphs stayed concealed for millennia. Unlike their famous counterparts, many of the newly discovered lines are carved into hillsides or nestled between ridges, their shallow trenches filled in by centuries of wind-blown dust. Their survival is a testament to the Nazca's genius in choosing stable, sheltered canvases. But here's the haunting question: if modern tech keeps revealing hidden glyphs, how many more lie undiscovered? The Nazca Desert stretches over 50,000 square kilometers, and current estimates suggest we've mapped less than 5% of it. What's emerging is a radical new picture of the Nazca world, not as a culture fixated solely on the heavens, but as master storytellers who wove their myths into the very fabric of the land. Every drone flight, every pixel of satellite data peels back another layer of their cosmic dialogue, and with each discovery, the lines blur between what we call art, ritual, and a language written not in words, but in the silent embrace of earth and sky. The desert hasn't given up its secrets, it's waiting for us to ask better questions. The Antikythera Mechanism's true brilliance didn't fully emerge until researchers began reconstructing its shattered gears with modern technology. Using high-resolution X-ray tomography and three-dimensional modeling, scientists peeled back layers of corrosion to reveal inscriptions and gear functions invisible to the naked eye. One of the most astonishing discoveries was its ability to predict eclipses with pinpoint accuracy. Tiny glyphs hidden along its dials spelled out lunar and solar eclipse warnings, marking them as ominous events with phrases like darkening and concealment. Even more remarkable, the mechanism's eclipse predictions followed a complex Babylonian-derived cycle called the Saros, a repeating pattern of eclipses every 18 years, 11 days, and 8 hours. This meant a hand-cranked device from the 2nd century BCE could forecast celestial drama decades in advance, something no other known technology achieved until the Renaissance. But how did it work? The answer lies in an intricate assembly of interlocking gears, some with teeth so finely cut they resembled modern watch components. One gear, representing the moon's orbit, was slightly off-center to mimic the elliptical path we now know is caused by gravitational pull. Another tracked the moon's wobbling rotation, a phenomenon called nodal precession, allowing the mechanism to predict when the moon's shadow might cross the sun or Earth. This wasn't just a clock, it was a mechanical cosmos, compressing the universe's rhythms into a shoebox-sized marvel. Modern reconstructions, like the one built by London Science Museum, prove it functioned flawlessly. Turn the handle and tiny gem-like indicators glide across dials, marking planetary positions and eclipse dates with eerie precision. This sophistication raises a haunting question: why did such groundbreaking technology vanish for over a millennium? The mechanism's isolation in the historical record is as baffling as its complexity. Ancient texts mention celestial globes and automata, but nothing matching its intricacy. Even Archimedes, the era's greatest engineer, was said to have built planetariums, yet his designs were lost when Roman soldiers sacked Syracuse. Historians speculate that the Antikythera Mechanism might have been a prototype, its creators among a small circle of scholars in Rhodes, a hub of astronomical study. When Rome conquered Greece, the knowledge could have died with its makers either slaughtered or enslaved, while surviving devices decayed in shipwrecks or were melted down for their bronze. Another theory points to cultural shifts. The rise of Rome favored practicality over abstract science, and early Christian Europe viewed such mechanisms as pagan curiosities. By the time medieval scholars rediscovered Greek astronomy, the gearwork techniques had been forgotten, replaced by simpler astrolabes and volvels. But perhaps the most poignant explanation is scarcity. The Antikythera's complexity required rare expertise and resources, precisely the things destroyed by war and time. Like a single spark snuffed out by wind, its brilliance flickered briefly, then vanished into the dark. What lingers isn't just admiration for ancient ingenuity, but a humbling lesson: progress isn't inevitable. The Antikythera Mechanism stands as a ghost of what might have been, a world where the scientific revolution began not in the 1600s, but centuries earlier. Its silent gears whisper a warning we do well to heed: knowledge, no matter how advanced, is fragile, and sometimes the greatest mysteries aren't about what we've discovered, but what we've lost along the way. To understand the madness that gripped Strasbourg in 1518, we must step back into the shadow of medieval Europe, a world teetering on the edge of collapse. The dancing plague didn't erupt in isolation. It was the culmination of decades of unrelenting stress, crop failures, brutal winters, and the lingering horror of the Black Death, which had wiped out a third of Europe's population just a century earlier. But there's a darker thread woven into this tapestry of suffering: the cult of St. Vitus, a martyr whose name became synonymous with uncontrollable movement. Pilgrims flocked to his shrines, believing ritual dances could cure a mysterious ailment called St. Vitus dance, characterized by jerking limbs and trance-like states. Some historians argue these weren't just religious ecstasies, but symptoms of mass psychological trauma, a society breaking under the weight of relentless despair. The connection between St. Vitus and the Strasbourg outbreak is chilling. Contemporary accounts describe victims not just dancing, but convulsing in ways that mirrored the saint's miraculous fits. This wasn't mere coincidence. Medieval Europe saw the body as a canvas for divine punishment or blessing, a belief that turned physical symptoms into spiritual omens. When famine struck Strasbourg in the years before the plague, desperate citizens may have interpreted their spasms as either curses or calls to penance, fueling a feedback loop of panic. Imagine the scene: a town already starving, its people half mad with hunger, suddenly gripped by the conviction that only movement could save their souls. The line between devotion and delirium would have been razor thin, yet biology can't be ignored. Malnutrition leaves the brain vulnerable to hallucinations and neurological misfires. Deficiencies in magnesium or ergot poisoning from moldy rye, common in times of scarcity, could have triggered muscle spasms mistaken for dancing. Add to this the power of suggestion in a superstitious society, where one person's seizure might spark dozens of imitations. Modern parallels exist. In 1862, a laughter epidemic swept Tanganyika, affecting hundreds with uncontrollable giggling for months. Psychologists call it mass psychogenic illness, a physical manifestation of shared stress. In medieval Strasbourg, where the very air smelled of decay and the church preached impending doom, the body became a battleground for fears too terrifying to name. Perhaps the most haunting aspect of the dancing plague isn't the why, but the why then. History is littered with moments when humanity's resilience snaps like a frayed rope. The 16th century was a pressure cooker of change, religious upheaval, climate shifts, the birth of modernity straining against old superstitions. In that crucible, the people of Strasbourg didn't just dance, they acted out a primal scream against the universe, a frenzy that defies easy explanation because it lives in the liminal space between mind and body, faith and frenzy. Some mysteries refuse to fit neatly into boxes labeled biology or belief. They force us to sit with the uncomfortable truth. Sometimes when the world becomes too much to bear, the body speaks in languages we're only beginning to decipher. The Tunguska event wasn't just a historical curiosity, it was a wake-up call. Had that explosion occurred over a major city instead of an uninhabited Siberian forest, millions could have perished in an instant. Today, over a century later, the threat of cosmic impacts hasn't vanished. If anything, our awareness of it has sharpened, thanks to advances in astronomy and the sobering realization that Earth exists in a cosmic shooting gallery. But here's the crucial difference. This time, we're not just watching the skies, we're learning how to defend ourselves. Modern planetary defense begins with detection. NASA's Center for Near-Earth Object Studies maintains a constantly updated catalog of asteroids and comets that could pose a threat, tracking over 27,000 near-Earth objects as of 2024. Projects like the Pan-STARRS telescopes in Hawaii scan the sky nightly, pinpointing previously unknown objects with algorithms that flag even the faintest moving dots. The goal: to identify potential threats decades in advance, buying us time to act, but spotting the danger is only the first step. The real challenge lies in deflection, a field where science fiction is rapidly becoming science fact. One of the most promising strategies is the kinetic impactor technique, demonstrated spectacularly by NASA DART mission in 2022. The spacecraft slammed into the asteroid Dimorphos at over 14,000 miles per hour, intentionally altering its orbit. The results exceeded expectations. Dimorphos' trajectory shifted significantly, proving we could nudge an asteroid off course given enough lead time. For larger objects like a Tunguska-scale asteroid, multiple impactors or even nuclear detonations might be necessary, not to obliterate the threat, but to gently steer it away. The European Space Agency's upcoming Hera mission will study Dimorphos' crater in detail, refining these deflection models for future emergencies, yet technology alone isn't enough. Global cooperation is critical. The United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs oversees an international asteroid warning network, ensuring data flows freely between nations. In 2023, NASA and the European Space Agency conducted a joint simulation, practicing response protocols for a hypothetical asteroid on a collision course. The exercise revealed both strengths: rapid data sharing, and vulnerabilities, like political delays in approving deflection missions, because when the next Tunguska comes, hesitation could mean catastrophe. The stakes couldn't be higher. In 2013, the Chelyabinsk meteor, just 60 feet wide, exploded with 30 times the energy of Hiroshima, injuring over 1,000 people. Tunguska's impactor was likely 10 times larger. An object that size striking today would devastate an area the size of a small country, but for the first time in history, we're not helpless. From next-generation telescopes like the Vera-C, Rubin Observatory, to experimental gravity tractors that use a spacecraft's mass to slowly pull asteroids off course, our toolkit is expanding. The universe may still hold surprises, but we're no longer just bystanders. We're becoming guardians of our own planet. Captain Trigg Johnston was mid-maneuver when the sky above him suddenly went dark. As a seasoned commercial pilot with over 12,000 flight hours, He'd seen weather anomalies, military exercises, and the occasional oddball balloon, but nothing like the silent, V-shaped mass that eclipsed the stars over Phoenix that March evening in 1897. Unlike the military's later claims about parachute flares, Johnston's testimony cuts through the official narrative with chilling precision. This wasn't some scattered lights, he recounted decades later, hands tracing the air as if reliving the moment. It was a single, solid structure, 5 distinct lights embedded in a craft so massive, it passed directly over my plane close enough that I could have hit it with a rock. His radar showed nothing, no transponder signal, no metallic return, just empty sky where his eyes told him something impossible hovered. Then there's the testimony of Phoenix Police Sergeant Mitchell Koss. On patrol near the Deer Valley Airport that night, Koss initially assumed the glowing orbs were military flares until they began moving in formation. Flares don't bank left, he noted dryly in his official report, describing how the lights executed a synchronized turn before vanishing behind the Estrella Mountains. His dashcam footage, later analyzed by optical physicists, revealed something even stranger. The lights maintained perfect spacing despite wind shear that should have scattered airborne objects. When questioned under oath, Koss admitted the encounter left him uneasy. "I've served in the Air Force, I know what flares look like, what I saw defied every flight dynamic in the book." But why do other witnesses describe radically different phenomena? Some recall a boomerang-shaped craft stretching nearly a mile wide, while others insist they saw discrete orbs darting independently. The divergence isn't as contradictory as it seems. Optical scientists point to the scaling illusion effect when viewing unfamiliar objects at extreme distances. The human brain struggles with perspective. A formation of smaller craft flying in tight unison could appear as a single massive structure to some observers, while others might perceive individual components. Atmospheric conditions also played tricks that night. Temperature inversions over the desert can distort light, bending and stretching distant sources into unnatural shapes. Yet the most haunting accounts come from civilian witnesses like elementary school teacher Lorraine Walker, who watched the lights from her backyard with a group of neighbors. The weirdest part wasn't the size, she recalled. It was the silence, something that big should have shaken the ground, but we heard nothing, not even the dogs barked. Her observation aligns with reports of infrasound, frequencies below human hearing that can induce visceral dread. Could the phenomenon have emitted low-frequency vibrations, explaining both the eerie quiet and the physiological unease described by so many? The Phoenix lights endure not because they fit neatly into one explanation, but because they force us to confront the limits of perception itself. When faced with the genuinely anomalous, eyewitnesses aren't unreliable. They're grappling with something beyond their sensory vocabulary, whether secret aircraft, atmospheric oddity, or something far stranger. The event peeled back the curtain on a profound truth. Sometimes reality doesn't bend to fit our expectations. And in that gap between what we see and what we can explain, legends are born. For decades, the official Soviet explanation for the Dyatlov Pass incident was as sparse as the Siberian snow, a vague declaration of an unknown compelling force, and little else. But in 2021, after years of pressure from researchers and journalists, Russian authorities quietly declassified a trove of Cold War-era documents. Among the bureaucratic memos and redacted reports, one phrase jumps out repeatedly: atmospheric weapons testing. The files describe a series of secret military experiments conducted in the late 1950s under the code name Project Sphere, aimed at manipulating weather patterns using high-altitude explosions and electromagnetic pulses. According to coordinates buried in the documents, one such test occurred in February 1959, less than 100 miles from Dyatlov Pass during the exact window of the hiker's disappearance. Witness statements from nearby villages mention strange lights pulsing behind the Ural Mountains that night, followed by concussive booms that shook windows, but left no visible craters. Even more chilling are the medical examiner's handwritten notes, previously unseen, describing burns on the victim's hands and faces consistent with high-frequency radiant energy, not frostbite. But here's where the trail goes cold literally. The documents never explicitly link Project Sphere to the hiker's fate. Some pages are conspicuously missing, their absence marked by archival inventory numbers with no corresponding files. What remains hints at a frantic cover-up, a memo ordering local officials to prevent speculation about atmospheric anomalies, and another demanding the immediate retrieval of all experimental materials from the test zone. Historians remain divided. Dr. Ivan Petrov, a former Soviet military physicist, claims these tests involved experimental sonic weapons, infrasound cannons designed to induce disorientation and terror in enemy troops. At certain frequencies, he explains, the human brain perceives infrasound as an existential threat, triggering blind panic. This could explain why experienced hikers slash their way out of their tent half-dressed, fleeing into -30°C darkness, as if pursued by invisible wolves. Yet skeptics point out the glaring holes. Even if secret tests occurred, why would the military risk exposure by staging them near civilian hiking routes? And how does this account for the radiation traces or the missing tongue? The declassified files raise more questions than answers, like a puzzle with half the pieces intentionally warped. What emerges isn't a smoking gun, but a shadow play, one that forces us to reconsider the intersection of human error and state secrecy. Whether the hikers stumbled into a classified experiment or fell victim to the mountain's natural fury, their story remains a dark reflection of an era when governments treated both people and truth as expendable. Some files may never see light, some truths may forever stay buried under snow and time, and perhaps that's the real lesson of Dyatlov Pass. In the clash between nature's mysteries and human secrets, the wilderness always keeps the last word. For over 2 centuries, the Oak Island Money Pit has taunted treasure hunters with its labyrinth of booby traps and cryptic clues, but in the last decade, something unprecedented happened. The Legina brothers, Rick and Marty, brought modern technology and relentless determination to the island, transforming this age-old mystery into a gripping real-time excavation. Their most tantalizing breakthrough, the so-called Chapel Vault, a mysterious underground chamber detected by sonar scans deep beneath the infamous borehole 10X. In 2021, high-resolution sonar imaging revealed a startling anomaly 30 feet below the bedrock, a rectangular structure measuring roughly 7 by 5 feet, with walls too geometrically precise to be natural. This wasn't just another layer of oak logs or coconut fiber. The scans suggested a man-made vault, possibly lined with metal, resting in a chamber flooded with seawater. The discovery sent shockwaves through the archaeological community because it aligned eerily with a 19th century account by excavator Frederick Blair, who described workers hitting an iron barrier at the same depth before flood tunnels forced them to abandon the dig. The Leginas dubbed it the Chapel Vault after early treasure hunter Gilbert Chapel, who'd insisted for decades that something monumental lay hidden in that exact spot. But here's where the plot thickens. Attempts to reach the vault have been thwarted by Oak Island's infamous engineering. When the team drilled core samples into the chamber, they pulled up fragments of human-made materials, shards of porcelain, bits of parchment, and even a sliver of bone. Carbon dating placed some artifacts as old as the 1600s, while others defied identification entirely. Then came the most perplexing find yet, a piece of metal alloy containing trace elements of gold and silver, unlike any known colonial-era smelting. Could this be the remnants of a treasure chest, or something far stranger? Critics argue the vault might be a natural fissure distorted by wishful interpretation, but that doesn't explain the artifacts. Geologists point out that Oak Island's bedrock is riddled with anhydrite, a mineral that dissolves in water to form gypsum, potentially creating voids that resemble chambers. Yet even skeptics admit the sonar data is compelling. The vault's dimensions mirror descriptions of Templar reliquaries, fueling speculation that it could hold sacred relics smuggled from Europe during the Order's persecution. Others whisper of Francis Bacon's lost manuscripts or pirate gold melted down to avoid identification. The Legina's most recent efforts involve a massive caisson, a steel tube driven into the earth to bypass the flood tunnels paired with underwater drones to map the chamber's interior. Early footage shows shadowy outlines that could be crates or collapsed masonry, but the murky water and centuries of sediment make definitive identification impossible without physical retrieval. Every attempt feels like a dance with the island itself, as if Oak Island resists revelation with the same ingenuity its original architects used to protect their secret. What makes this chapter of the Oak Island saga so electrifying isn't just the potential treasure, it's the collision of old-world mystery and cutting-edge science. The chapel vault represents the closest anyone's come to piercing the heart of the enigma, yet it remains just out of reach, a ghostly presence in the scans, whispering that some secrets aren't surrendered easily. Whether it's gold or merely the grandest archaeological wild goose chase in history, one thing's certain, the island isn't done with us yet, and perhaps that's the real treasure, the unshakable reminder that the world still holds wonders waiting to be uncovered by those stubborn enough to keep digging. The Bermuda Triangle's reputation as a supernatural vortex crumbles under the weight of cold, hard data, but that doesn't make the truth any less fascinating. Take the case of Flight 19, the squadron of Navy bombers that vanished in 1945. For years, their disappearance fueled speculation about magnetic anomalies or alien abductions. Yet declassified flight logs and radio transcripts reveal a far more human tragedy. Lieutenant Charles Taylor, the lead pilot, was hopelessly lost, confused by malfunctioning compasses and disoriented by shifting cloud cover. He mistakenly believed they drifted over the Gulf of Mexico when they were actually still off Florida's coast. As fuel ran low, his final transmissions crackled with mounting panic. All planes close up tight, we'll have to ditch unless landfall, then silence. Search planes later vanished too, not because of cosmic forces, but because one exploded midair due to a known mechanical fault, and another succumbed to storm surges while scanning the water. The ocean didn't swallow them, a cascade of errors did. Then there's the SS Marine Sulphur Queen, a tanker that disappeared in 1963 with 39 souls aboard. Conspiracy theorists blamed the Triangle's mysterious forces, but the Coast Guard's investigation uncovered something far more ordinary and preventable. The ship's converted hull was riddled with stress fractures from carrying molten sulfur at high temperatures. Eyewitnesses reported seeing it list dangerously weeks before its final voyage. When it vanished, no mayday call was issued, suggesting a catastrophic structural failure that sent it to the bottom in minutes. The real mystery isn't why it sank, but why it was ever cleared to sail. Even the legendary Ellen Austin incident, a ghost ship reportedly found adrift in the Triangle with no crew in 1880, unravels under scrutiny. Contemporary newspapers contradict the tale, and maritime archives show no record of a ship by that name disappearing under such circumstances. The story likely sprouted from a patchwork of real disasters and sailors' yarns, embellished over decades into supernatural lore. So why does the legend persist? Because the mundane truth that human error, poor maintenance, and brutal weather claim ships and planes everywhere lacks the drama of cosmic riddles. Insurance giant Lloyd's of London confirms the Triangle sees no more disappearances than other high-traffic zones like the North Sea or the South China Sea. Satellite data reveals its weather is no more volatile than average tropical waters. The difference, a perfect storm of sensationalism. When author Vincent Gaddis coined the term Bermuda Triangle in a 1964 magazine article, he cherry-picked cases while ignoring simpler explanations. Later writers amplified the myth, creating a feedback loop where every accident in the region became evidence of something sinister, yet dismissing the triangle entirely misses a deeper point. Its legend thrives because it mirrors our existential unease, the fear that for all our technology, nature can still erase us without a trace. The ocean doesn't need portals or aliens to be terrifying. Its vastness, its storms, its sheer indifference are horror enough. The Bermuda Triangle isn't a place where physics break down, it's where our illusions of control shatter against the waves. And sometimes that's the most unsettling mystery of all. In 2021, a team of cold case investigators tried a radical new approach to unmasking the Zodiac Killer, one that had already shattered decades-long mysteries like the Golden State Killer case. They turned to genetic genealogy, leveraging DNA technology to trace the killer's identity through distant relatives' ancestry databases. The process began with a crucial artifact, a decades-old envelope licked by the Zodiac, its stamp potentially harboring traces of his saliva. Painstaking analysis extracted a partial DNA profile, just enough to upload to public genealogy sites like GEDmatch, where algorithms scoured millions of user profiles for familial matches. The breakthrough came not from a direct hit, but from a constellation of distant cousins sharing slivers of the killer's genetic code. By building out sprawling family trees, researchers zeroed in on a prime suspect, Gary Francis Post, a deceased Air Force veteran and house painter from California. Post's proximity to the murders, his artistic skills, the Zodiac ciphers required graphic precision, and even his physical resemblance to the infamous police sketch made him a tantalizing lead. Most compelling, investigators claimed Post's name could be derived from the Zodiac's Unsolved 340 cipher, a theory met with both fascination and skepticism from cryptographers. But here's where the story twists. Unlike the Golden State Killer, whose DNA provided a conclusive match, the Zodiac case lacked definitive proof. The envelope DNA was degraded, and without a direct comparison sample from Post, the link remained circumstantial. Critics pointed out that the cipher solution relied on selective interpretation, a common pitfall in cold cases where confirmation bias creeps in. Even the genetic evidence faced scrutiny. Saliva on a stamp could have come from a postal worker, not the killer. The investigation's legacy lies not in closure, but in possibility. Genetic genealogy has cracked over 200 cold cases since 2018, proving its power to rewrite history. Yet the Zodiac, ever the trickster, dodges certainty once more. His ciphers, his taunts, even his DNA seem to whisper the same maddening lesson. Some puzzles aren't designed to be solved. They're designed to remind us that even in an age of science, shadows still linger at the edges of understanding, and sometimes the most enduring mysteries aren't about the answers we find, but the questions that refuse to die. Science took another leap into the Shroud of Turin's mysteries in 2023, this time focusing not on the enigmatic image itself, but on the dark stains speckling the fabric. Stains long believed to be blood. Recent advancements in forensic biochemistry allowed researchers to analyze microscopic samples with unprecedented precision, isolating hemoglobin molecules that had degraded over centuries. What they found was startling. The protein structures matched patterns consistent with severe trauma, specifically the kind inflicted during Roman crucifixions. But here's the detail that sent chills down spines: the blood's chemical signature indicated high levels of bilirubin, a compound released when the body undergoes extreme stress. This wasn't just any injury, it was the slow, agonizing torture of someone who'd been flogged to the brink of death before being nailed to a cross. Even more compelling were the traces of creatinine and ferritin embedded in the fibers, markers typically found in victims of brutal physical trauma. Modern forensic pathologists note that these biomarkers align eerily with historical accounts of Roman execution methods. The positioning of the stains tells its own gruesome story. Wrist wounds, not palm wounds, as often depicted in medieval art, correlate with anatomical studies showing that nails driven through the palms would tear under a body's weight, whereas the wrist's robust structure could support it. The shroud stains mirror this exact placement, a detail unknown to artists at the time the cloth first surfaced in the 14th century, yet controversy lingers. Skeptics argue that hemoglobin degrades beyond recognition after 600 years, let alone 2000. They point to a 2018 study suggesting some stains might contain medieval pigments mixed with actual blood, possibly from a later artistic touch-up. But the 2023 findings complicate that theory. Advanced mass spectrometry detected no binder materials, no egg tempera, or plant gums typically used in medieval paint. The blood's distribution also defies artistic manipulation. Under ultraviolet light, the stains fluoresce in ways that reveal capillary action, as if the cloth absorbed fresh blood from open wounds. The most haunting question isn't just whether the blood is real, but whose it could be. Isotope analysis of dust particles trapped in the shroud's fibers traces them to the limestone-rich region around Jerusalem. Pollen grains embedded in the linen, identified by botanists in the 1990s, include species native to the Dead Sea Basin. Even the weaving pattern, a 3-to-1 herringbone twill, matches first-century Jewish burial customs. But the ultimate test may lie ahead. Researchers are now petitioning to apply CRISPR-based DNA sequencing to the blood traces, hoping to isolate genetic markers that could reveal ancestral origins. What makes these stains more than just forensic curiosities is the way they bridge faith and science. Whether viewed as divine proof or an elaborate medieval hoax, the shroud forces us to confront the limits of both disciplines. Science can parse hemoglobin and isotopes, but it can't explain why no forger, no matter how brilliant, would have known first-century crucifixion techniques with such granular accuracy. Faith can inspire belief, but not the chemical reactions that fluoresce under a microscope. The blood stains, like the shroud itself, exist in that liminal space where evidence and mystery collide, leaving us with a relic that refuses to be either fully explained or dismissed. And perhaps that's the point. Some artifacts don't exist to provide answers, they exist to keep us questioning. Captain Benjamin Briggs was no reckless sailor. A devout family man with years of command experience, he'd overseen the Mary Celeste's meticulous loading in New York before setting sail with his wife, 2-year-old daughter, and 8 trusted crewmen. The notion that such a man would order everyone into a lifeboat without dire cause seems unthinkable until you examine the ship's recently rediscovered logbook pages, water-stained but still legible, found tucked away in a Genos maritime archive in 2019. These fragile sheets reveal a crucial detail previous accounts missed. The Mary Celeste had been battling relentless headwinds for days, slowing her progress to a crawl, while the cargo of industrial alcohol slowly fermented in unseasonably warm temperatures. Chemical analysis of barrel residues confirms what those log entries hint at: the alcohol wasn't just evaporating, it was turning volatile. Modern maritime engineers estimate that in the ship's poorly ventilated hold, vapor concentrations could have reached explosive levels. Captain Briggs, a cautious man who'd insured his cargo for $30,000, a fortune in 1872, would have recognized the danger signs: the sour stench permeating the decks, the unnatural warmth radiating from below. His final log entry, penned in his characteristically steady hand, notes an unexplained disturbance in the cargo hold before abruptly ending mid-sentence. This changes everything. Imagine the scene: a sudden hiss of vapor escaping a cracked barrel, the crew's terror as someone shouts, "Fire!" In that panicked moment, abandoning ship might not have seemed irrational, it would have been the only choice. Lifeboats of the era were crude, but burning alive was worse. The puzzle isn't why they left, but why they never reached land. Recent ocean current modeling suggests their lifeboat, if set adrift near the Azores, would have been swept into the Atlantic's dreaded Sargasso Sea, a windless graveyard where countless small vessels vanished without trace. Yet the greatest twist lies in the Mary Celeste structural secrets. Sonar scans conducted in 2021 revealed hairline fractures in her hull timbers near the cargo hold, likely caused by the same rough seas that slowed her progress. These weren't fatal flaws, but to a captain unaware of their extent, hearing groans from a stressed hull while smelling alcohol vapors, that's a recipe for catastrophic misjudgment. The real tragedy isn't the mystery, it's how a perfect storm of mundane horrors could conspire to make sane men choose the deadly unknown over the visible danger. The sea doesn't need ghosts to claim lives. Sometimes fear and bad luck are curse enough. The quiet soil of Hatteras Island has started whispering its secrets written in strands of DNA. In 2022, a groundbreaking study compared genetic material from modern-day Roanoke area families with both European genealogical records and Native American tribal descendants. The results were startling. Distinct markers linking back to the lost colonists appeared in several local lineages, most notably among the Lumbee and other Algonquian-speaking tribes. One specific mitochondrial DNA sequence, rare in England but recurring in these families, matched a maternal line documented in 16th century Suffolk, home to at least 5 Roanoke settlers. But here's where the story defies simplicity. Geneticist Dr. Roberta S., who led the analysis, cautions that DNA alone can't paint the full picture. What we're seeing isn't a tidy assimilation narrative, she explains. These markers suggest contact, even intermarriage, but also potential violence, enslavement, or forced integration. The genetic trail is punctuated by gaps. Some colonial lineages vanish abruptly, while others resurface generations later in tribal communities. Archaeological finds add texture to this patchwork. Excavations near Buxton, North Carolina, uncovered Elizabethan-era signet rings and axe heads repurposed by native artisans, objects that hint at trade, theft, or perhaps reluctant adoption. The most poignant clue lies in oral histories. For centuries, the Lumbee have recounted stories of light-eyed ancestors who joined their communities after a great turmoil. Tribal elder Earl Oxendine recalls his grandmother's insistence that their family carried the blood of the strangers who came before the Jamestown people. Until recently, historians dismissed such accounts as folklore. Now genetics lends them weight, yet controversy lingers. Some tribal members oppose the study, arguing it reduces complex histories to biological footnotes. DNA doesn't capture the whole truth of survival, says Lumbee historian Melinda Maynor Lowery. Our ancestors didn't just absorb these colonists, they made deliberate choices to protect or incorporate them during a time of catastrophic change. Others question why European ancestry gets prioritized when indigenous lineages remain understudied. The real revelation isn't just who these people were, but how they navigated a collapsing world. The DNA echoes with resilience fragments of English pottery woven into Algonquian fishing weirs, a brass button refashioned as a child's toy. These weren't just lost colonists finding refuge. They were people learning to belong to a new earth, their legacy written not in vanishing carvings, but in the living pulse of descendants who still walk these shores today. For those who believe, the crystal skulls aren't just curiosities, they're conduits of energy, vibrating with frequencies that can mend the body and sharpen the mind. Take the case of healer Maria Lopez, who swears by a rose quartz skull she keeps on her altar. After years of chronic migraines that defied modern medicine, she claims the skull's presence dulled her pain within weeks, not through touch but proximity. It's like the stone pulls the ache out of me, she describes, her hands hovering over its smooth surface as if sensing an invisible current. Stories like hers abound in New Age circles, where practitioners use skulls in meditation, Reiki sessions, or simply as bedside talismans. Some report vivid dreams after sleeping near them, Others insist their arthritis or insomnia faded after regular, skull sessions. But what's really happening here? Skeptics point to the well-documented placebo effect, the brain's remarkable ability to conjure physical relief when it expects healing. Neurologists note that chronic pain sufferers often respond to rituals or objects they associate with care, triggering endogenous opioids. Yet even critics struggle to explain anomalies. In 2018, a controlled study at Arizona State University placed participants near authentic quartz skulls and replicas without revealing which was which. Those exposed to the genuine artifacts reported significantly higher energy sensations, despite being blind to the difference. Could the skull's piezoelectric properties, quartz's ability to generate weak electrical charges under pressure, play a role? Ancient astronaut theorists speculate these objects might be tuned to interact with human biofields, acting like spiritual tuning forks. The most striking accounts come from shamans like Don Alejandro, a Mayan elder who describes the skulls as stone computers, storing ancestral wisdom. During ceremonies, he claims certain skulls emit audible hums or shift temperature, unpredictably phenomena witnessed by anthropologists, but never captured conclusively on instruments. One particularly chilling testimony involves a journalist who, while interviewing a skull keeper in Belize, watched a beam of sunlight refract through the quartz onto a wall, projecting symbols matching pre-Columbian glyphs. No lens or carving explained the effect, so where does that leave us? Science can't yet measure energy healing, but it's also true that quartz has measurable electromagnetic properties. Perhaps the skulls exist in the liminal space between physics and faith, objects that amplify intention rather than radiate magic. Whether placebo or paranormal, their power may lie less in what they do than in what they reveal about our capacity to heal when we believe in forces beyond the visible. And sometimes the most profound mysteries aren't about the objects themselves, but the minds and hearts they open along the way. Look closely at these 35 legends, and a pattern emerges, one that threads through every mystery like an invisible current. From the Voynich Manuscript's unreadable script to the silent vastness of the Wow, Signal's unanswered call, they all whisper the same unsettling truth: we are smaller than we know. The universe doesn't bend to our understanding. Instead, it dances just beyond our grasp, leaving behind riddles that ignite both our wonder and our deepest fears. Take humanity's obsession with vanishing acts, the Mary Celeste's abandoned decks, Roanoke's eerie carvings, the Dyatlov Pass's frozen enigma. These aren't just stories of disappearance. They're mirrors reflecting our terror of being erased without explanation. In a world where we track every step and pixel, these gaps in the record taunt us. They prove that no matter how tightly we cling to control, the cosmos can still swallow whole chapters of human existence without a trace, and that's the paradox at the heart of these legends. We're desperate to solve them, yet terrified of what we might find. Then there's the recurring motif of celestial breadcrumbs, the Nazca Line's skyward gaze, the Black Knight's alleged signals, even the Tunguska event's fiery descent. Across cultures and centuries, we've strained to interpret the heavens as a message meant for us. The irony, these cosmic clues likely have nothing to do with humanity at all. The Wow signal was probably a natural phenomenon, the Black Knight, space junk, yet we can't help but weave narratives where we're the protagonists of the universe's grand story. It's as if admitting that celestial events might be random, indifferent to our existence, is too crushing to bear, but the most fascinating thread is how these legends morph over time. The crystal skulls began as likely fakes, then became Atlantean relics, then alien artifacts, each iteration adapting to our changing fears and fascinations. The Bermuda Triangle evolved from a sailor's cautionary tale to a Cold War-era UFO hotspot to a modern metaphor for life's unpredictability. These stories aren't static. They're alive, shape-shifting to fill whatever void our era demands: divine wrath in the Middle Ages, secret technology in the atomic age, glitches in the simulation for the digital generation. Underneath it all pulses a humbling reality. However vast our knowledge grows, the unknown always stretches vaster. The Tao's hum reminds us that some frequencies elude even our finest instruments. The zodiac ciphers taunt us with solutions that crumble under scrutiny, and the Antikythera Mechanism, it's a relic of brilliance lost to time, proof that knowledge isn't a ladder always climbing upward, but a flickering candle in the wind. These 35 legends aren't just puzzles waiting to be solved, they're the universe's way of keeping us curious, humble, and forever hungry, because the moment we stop wondering about the edges of the map, whether drawn on parchment or etched in starlight, is the moment we stop being human. And in that endless pursuit of what if, we find something far more precious than answers, the unshakable thrill of the hunt. What makes these enigmas cling to the edges of history, refusing to fade into oblivion? Perhaps it's because they're more than just stories, they're mirrors reflecting our deepest fears, our wildest hopes, and the uncomfortable truth that for all our progress, the universe still holds cards it hasn't shown us. Consider how differently these legends speak to us across time. The dancing plague of Strasbourg wasn't just a medical mystery to 15th century villagers, it was divine punishment made flesh, a terrifying reminder of their powerlessness against unseen forces. Today we might call it mass psychogenic illness, but the chill down your spine when you imagine hundreds of people dancing themselves to death, that hasn't changed a bit. These legends persist because they live in the liminal space between what we know and what we dare to imagine. The Voynich Manuscript isn't just an unreadable book, it's the tantalizing possibility that an entire worldview, a complete understanding of nature, might be locked away in those cryptic pages, forever out of reach. The Tao's hum isn't merely an acoustic anomaly, it's the embodiment of all those moments we've sworn, we heard or felt something others couldn't. These stories endure because they validate that nagging sense that reality isn't as solid as it seems. Some serve as warnings etched into collective memory. The Tunguska event reminds us that our planet orbits in a cosmic shooting gallery, while the Dyatlov Pass incident whispers how quickly nature can turn from backdrop to executioner. Others, like the crystal skulls, reveal how easily wonder can curdle into deception, and how desperately we want to believe in magic even when the evidence crumbles. And then there are those like the wow signal that stand as cosmic postcards from the void, asking the most profound question of all, are we really alone? But here's the beautiful paradox: these mysteries don't need definitive answers to matter. Their power lies in the conversations they spark, the curiosity they ignite, the way they keep us looking up at the stars or digging through old archives. Every generation gets to reinterpret them through new lenses. Medieval villagers saw signs from God, Victorians framed them as scientific challenges, and today we might view them through quantum physics or simulation theory. The legends evolve because we do. So tell us, which of these enigmas keeps you up at night? Is it the silent terror of the merry Celeste's empty decks, or the mathematical perfection of the Antikythera Mechanism's gears? Maybe it's the way the phoenix lights seem to hover just beyond explanation, or how Roanoke's single carved word echoes across centuries like a whisper we're not meant to fully hear. Whatever your mystery, remember this: the day we stop being haunted by the unknown is the day we stop being human. The cosmos isn't done surprising us yet. And neither are we. If these glimpses into the eternal unknown left you hungry for more, don't let the conversation end here. Share your theories below. Did we miss an enigma that still gives you chills? And for those who want to keep unraveling history's greatest puzzles with us, hit subscribe. The next mystery is already waiting.